Bitcoin is currently showing a bearish structure across the higher time frames. But does that mean we should simply short the market? Not necessarily. In this video, I am going to show you exactly how I am preparing for the upcoming trading week. We will start with the monthly, weekly, and daily charts. Then move down to 4-hour time frame to identify the key market structure and important resistance and support zones. I will also share the short sets and I am watching my stop loss and trading plan and how I manage my risk. And before we get into the setups, we will take a quick look at the fundamental side and this week important economic events including US CPI. So is Bitcoin ready for another move lower or could the market surprise us? Let's break it down. Hello traders, welcome back to the channel. I hope you are all doing great. My fundamental view, I would say the outlook for Bitcoin this week is neutral. The main reason is that the Federal Reserve is still keeping interest rates relatively restrictive. At its July meeting, the Fed kept the federal funds target range at 3.5% to 3.75%, while also saying that the inflation remains elevated compared with its 2% target. So, from the interest rate and inflation perspective, there is still some pressure on risk assets like Bitcoin. At the same time, we shouldn't ignore the positive side. Recent US spot Bitcoin ETF flows have shown renewed buying interest, which can provide support for Bitcoin. So, overall, I don't see a strong fundamental reason to be extremely bullish or extremely bearish this week. That's why I'm keeping my fundamental bias is neutral. Now let's look at the important economic events for this week. The biggest event I will be watching is US CPI on Wednesday, August 12th. CPI is important because it gives us an update on inflation. Stronger or weaker inflation numbers can change expectations around Federal Reserve policy. Then on Thursday, we have US PPI along with weekly jobless claims. And on Friday, we have US retail sales and the preliminary Michigan consumer sentiment data. So for me, Wednesday CPI is the main event of the week because these releases can create significant volatility in Bitcoin. I will be careful around the news and won't enter a trade simply because of the economic data. I will wait for the price action and my setup to confirm. Technical analysis. Let's start with monthly chart. I'm looking at the recent price action here. This is the Bitcoin US dollar monthly candlestick chart. Bitcoin reached an all-time high record $1,26,000. From that high, price dropped to around $57,700 and it is currently trading around $64,900. So Bitcoin has lost almost half of its value from the all-time high. Now let's analyze what we are seeing on the chart. From the high, Bitcoin formed a lower high followed by lower low, and we saw this happen twice. This was an early bearish sign. Then, when price broke the previous bullish swing low, the market structure changed from bullish to bearish. More recently, price made another swing low around $57,700 and recovered from there. So, based on monthly time frame, Bitcoin is still in a downtrend or bearish trend for now. Now let's move on to the weekly chart. Here we can clearly see a series of lower highs and lower lows, confirming a bearish market structure. So from the weekly perspective, Bitcoin is still in a clear downtrend. Our most recent swing high is around $82,820 and our swing low is around $57,730. Now the question is what is happening between these two levels? Let's move down to the daily chart and take a closer look. Now let's move on to the daily chart. We can clearly see that the daily chart is also in a downtrend with price forming lower highs and lower lows, which confirms a bearish market structure. The momentum is also bearish. We can see that price is trading below the 200 EMA, which supports the bearish view. The most recent swing high is around $67 to $45, while the swing low is around $57,736. So overall, the daily chart is still in a downtrend. And now we have the bigger market picture. The monthly, weekly, and daily time frames are all showing a bearish trend. So our higher time frame bias is clearly bearish. Now let's move down to the lower time frames and see what the price action is telling us. Now let's move on to the 4-hour chart. Recently, price made a high around $66,890 and then started falling. During the decline, price broke the previous bullish swing low around $62,490. After that break, price formed a lower high and a lower low, confirming that a bearish market structure has been established on the 4-hour time frame. So the 4-hour chart is also showing a bearish structure. Now we understand that the overall market is in a bearish trend and price is continuing to move lower. As traders say, the trend is your friend and trading against the trend can be risky. So for this week, I am planning to trade with the trend. I am only looking for short opportunities. But the next question is, where would I look for those short entries? For that, I use support and resistance zones. Since the market is bearish, I am mainly interested in resistance zones where price could potentially face selling pressure. I will mark these resistance zones on the 4-hour chart. When price comes back into one of these zones, I will wait for my setup and look for potential short entry. How do I identify these support? How do I identify a resistance zone? If I see price rejecting an area 2 or 3 times, I will mark that area as a resistance zone. I wanted to keep my trading simple and follow the same process every week. And just to be clear, I'm not giving financial advice here. I'm just simply showing you how I approach my own trading. These are the resistance zones I have marked on the chart and will be watching this week. When price comes into these zones, I will look for potential short opportunities. The first resistance zone is between 66,830 and 67,830 level. The second resistance zone is between 64,920 and 65,520 level. These are the areas where I will be watching for my short setups. Below the current price, we also have support zone between 60,990 and 62,100 level. If price breaks below this support zone and then come back to retest the zone, I will look for potential short opportunity. Now let's talk about my stop loss and target. For stock for shorts taken around the higher resistance zone, my stop loss will be placed above the 66,830 and 67,830 resistance zone level, which is also above the recent daily downtrend swing high. My initial target is the 6990 and 62,100 between the support zone level. However, if market conditions change or my support becomes invalid, I won't wait for the target. I will exit the trade early according to my plan. Again, this is simply how I planning my own trades. It's not a financial advice. Always do your own analysis and manage your losses. So that's my Bitcoin trading plan for the upcoming week. The higher time frames are currently bearish, so I'm mainly looking for short opportunities, but I am not going to force a trade. If price reaches my level and gives me the setup I'm looking for, I will follow my plan. If the setup is in there, I simply stay out. And next week, I will be back with a trade recap where I will go through the trades I took, what worked, what didn't, and whether I followed my trading plan. So, if you want to follow this journey, make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications and let me know in the comments, are you bullish or bearish on Bitcoin this week and why? I don't predict the market, I prepare for the market. Thanks for watching. Trade safe, and I will see you in the next one.